What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, I hope everyone is doing fantastic. Hope you guys have had a great start to the weekend. Hope you guys were ready for week 11 of the 2024 fantasy football season because it's kicking off first thing. Well, I guess not first thing in the morning, but tomorrow. No overseas games this week. We got one game down between the Commanders and the Eagles, and a full slate of NFL games tomorrow. Already 11 weeks into the season. Can't believe how fast this season is flying by. But you know what we need to do? We need to get everybody ready for week 11 of the season. So we're going to hop into some live fantasy Q&A, whatever you guys need. Start, sits, last minute waiver additions, last minute trade questions. For a lot of you guys, this is going to be the final week that you can trade before that trade deadline hits. So any trade questions that you guys may have, or any possible trades that you guys want to come up with tonight, let me know. And injury updates, weather updates, all that good stuff. Well, we're going to break it down. We're going to get everybody as best prepared as possible for week 11 of the season. So hop in the live chat. Let me know what you guys need. Let's have some fun. Let's talk some fantasy football, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So fortunately, we don't have anything too crazy here on the news report, but CeeDee Lamb has been a late addition to the injury report. He is questionable for Monday Night Football. So this is like as big of a slap to the face as we could get if you are a CeeDee Lamb owner, because we are already on the fence about starting CeeDee Lamb. I still think he's an okay flex this week against the Texans. I know I said the same thing last week, and that upset some people in the end, which is fair. Didn't do a whole lot. About 8 fantasy points this past week. But I think, the Texans secondary's just that bad that I still think he's startable. But now you're in a position where it's like you're probably just not going to start CeeDee Lamb, because I would expect really the only viable option that you could pick up would then be Jalen Tolbert, which, once again, decent matchup here against the Texans. And if there's no CeeDee Lamb, I guess Tolbert is maybe decent, but you don't really want to go into this matchup having to start Jalen Tolbert. So I think a lot of people are going to end up benching CeeDee Lamb because of this. If you have to wait out here, then so be it. But I think generally speaking, we're going to see a lot of people just benching CeeDee Lamb to avoid this situation. But I will say, if you are in a situation where you truly feel like CeeDee Lamb is your only viable option, then Jalen Tolbert probably okay for a few points if he's truly going to be the wide receiver one in this matchup. So it also is, of course, going to depend if Jalen Tolbert is available in your league. Now, I will say, on top of all of that, Mike McCarthy has come out and said that he is not worried about CeeDee Lamb playing this weekend. So, or I guess Monday, not the weekend, but who knows? Who knows? What a mess. All right, George Kittle is questionable going into this matchup against the Seattle Seahawks, dealing with that hamstring earlier that was reported earlier in the week. So we will see what happens there. And that, of course, let's see. That should be one of the daytime games. Afternoon game, 4:05 for me. So once again, we like, if there's going to be a questionable player, we prefer it in the early windows so that we have a better chance of setting our lineups and not having to worry as much. Trevor Lawrence is out. Tank Bigsby is out. Stay away from the Jags this week. This is not going to be pretty. DK Metcalf is good to go. It's a good week for DK Metcalf owner. Sam Laporta is out for the Lions. Do we take a chance on, what is it, Brock Wright in a great matchup? Maybe if you're desperate. Maybe. Nico Collins, 100% ready to go. T. Higgins is expected to play. Dalton Kincaid's out. That's about everything. So let's get into your guys' fantasy questions instead of me rambling. All right, how we doing? Let me know how everyone's doing, and let's talk some fantasy football. Axis, what's going on, man? Would you flex B. Tom Myers or Ramondre? Quite frankly, I'd probably go with Jacoby Myers. I know it's not a very good matchup going up against the Dolphins, giving up the 7th fewest fantasy points to the position. But I talked about this earlier in the week. Jacoby Myers has performed well in bad spots, performed well against Kansas City, performed well against Pat Surtain and the Denver Broncos. So I'm not too incredibly worried about it. I think he's a good start. It's a tough matchup for Ramondre, as the Rams have given up the 12th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. And then B. Tom, like, I mean, of course, either Brian Thomas Jr. or Ramondre Stevenson could be options here, but I feel the best, or at least I would say the safest floor, I think, comes with Jacoby Myers personally. Kels, what's going on? We got Jennings, JMO, JSN, pick one in the flex. I'm going with Jennings here, or at least if I'm going for a floor. Now, especially if Kittle doesn't play, I think that's the biggest fallout of the injury to George Kittle if he does not play, is that helps the push to start Jawan Jennings this weekend. So I will say I do really like Jameson Williams. But going back to Jennings, the Seahawks giving up the 23rd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I think he's got a super safe floor. I think he's a very good start. But I think that if you want a little bit of upside, you want to risk it, you could go Jameson Williams here, as the Jags are giving up the 27th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. JSN easily the toughest matchup here, going up against the Niners, giving up the 10th fewest fantasy points to the position. Plus, Metcalf's back, so I'm not quite expecting 13 targets and 37 fantasy points for JSN like we got the last time we saw him in action. So Disley or Knox? I'm going Disley. I'm not really on the Knox train here. I know that Kincaid's not playing. It's not a very good matchup, as the Chiefs have allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Cincinnati has been much, much worse against the position. Let's see here. They are giving up the 28th most fantasy points to the tight end position. So, like his matchup a little bit more here. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I've got this backwards. Yeah, so the Chiefs have struggled against opposing tight ends. I was looking at wide receiver numbers. So the Chiefs have actually given up the most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. But I still kind of trust Will Disley more. I know that Knox has that good, like, kind of red zone chemistry with Josh Allen, and this is going to be an interesting game script for sure. But I still lean Will Disley here. Still my call. I think Disley's just a very good streaming option this week. But Knox, probably okay for sure. Worthy, JSN, JMO, pick one to be your wide receiver 2. Like, if I'm in this option, I'll take the upside with Jameson Williams, and I'll risk it here. I'll take the risk. So JSN, tough matchup, probably okay. Worthy, you have to be really desperate. Like, there's no options. Deep bench league, deep league overall. You can't find anybody out there to play Worthy right now. It's just, there's no trust. Plus, Juju Smith-Schuster is back. Maybe that helps Worthy. Like, maybe it makes things worse. But the past 2 weeks, I don't know if it could be worse. Mundog 18, sit Cook for Chubb. I do like Chubb this week. Another player that we've talked about in this week's videos, excuse me. I like the matchup for Chubb. I like the game script a lot more for James Cook. I have a tough time benching James Cook. So I would probably roll James Cook out there personally. It's just hard. I mean, a top 10 running back, the floor is so safe. I'm probably going Cook here, but if you feel like you need some upside, like you faced Saquon Barkley or something, then I guess you could go Chubb. But I think I still lean Cook. There's a lot of running backs that I would consider starting Chubb over this week, but I would say running backs in the top 10, top 12. I'm probably not doing so. Love or Russ? So this is a tough one. If you own Jordan Love, I think that it's going to be a tough week potentially for him. I still think he's startable, but the Chicago Bears, they're one of these defenses that are just tough fantasy wise to go up against. They're giving up the fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. And then I think what's also tough with this situation is the last time we saw Jordan Love play, he was hurt and it was a rain game, but it just wasn't good. 23 of 39, an interception, and just really shouldn't have played in that game. Yeah. I think I'll go Russ. Russell Wilson's my favorite streaming option this week. Matchup's fantastic here, going up against the Ravens. Let's see. They've given up the 31st most fantasy points, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. So giving up the second most in the entire league to opposing quarterbacks. So I would probably just go ahead and continue to try and start our boy Dangerous this week. I want it to be Jordan Love, but I think if we own Jordan Love, it's a tough week this week. Can I trust Adams as a wide receiver 2 this week? Well, trust is a strong word. He's still very startable. I talked about this in the start sit video on the week. I still think he's very, very startable. It's a good enough matchup, and I do think that there's a very realistic possibility that we see the Jets in some fashion bounce back from the disaster we saw last week. They might not bounce back in the perspective that their season's going to be saved or from like a real life football perspective, but they could certainly play much better than this past week and give us far more viable fantasy stat lines. The Colts giving up the 22nd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And he still had 13 targets last week and 9.1 fantasy points. But the bigger issue here is that he's dealing with an illness and a wrist injury. I don't know if I've ever had a season where I've seen so many players popping up with wrist injuries, but trust is a strong word, but he's definitely startable. Sure. Yeah, I do think that JMO plenty of upside this week. If you own JMO, good upside play, but I also said the same thing last week. The Texans have actually allowed more fantasy points to opposing wide receivers than the Jaguars, but you never know. I think he could definitely bounce back, have a big impact, score early. Dobbs or Ricky Pearsall, asks Kels. I would go Ricky Pearsall. I think Dobbs, once again, very startable, but I'm going to look at matchup here. And the Bears allowing the second fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. So if I'm going to flex a Packers wide receiver this weekend, it is Romeo Dobbs, excluding Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, I would just have like in a start category. But then if we're looking at Dobbs, Watson, Wicks, feel the best about Dobbs, but you could honestly pick any of those guys and make a fair argument. I don't exactly know what to expect out of Ricky Pearsall, but especially if Kittle doesn't play, I will go with Ricky Pearsall. Better matchup. Can Kareem Hunt still return RB2 value when Pacheco comes back? I would actually say yes, but the consistency, I don't quite know what it's going to look like. So I would say at times, I think it will still happen because I don't think they're just going to go straight into Pacheco getting all the carries, which actually for me, I think it makes a worse situation for fantasy football because I think we're going to see a split backfield here. Is my loose prediction. I mean, who in the world knows what's going to happen, but I just don't know how consistent it's going to be. They get two great matchups right out of the gate here, assuming Pacheco's back in week 12. They get the Panthers and they get the Raiders before a tough matchup against the Chargers. And then the following week, they get the Browns. So actually don't know off the top of my head So Cleveland's 7th against running backs, so certainly not bad. Then they get the Chargers right before that, like I said, and they're giving up the 3rd fewest points. Then they get the Texans, which is another tough bunch, giving up the 6th fewest points. Then they get Pittsburgh, so it's a tough stretch. Pittsburgh giving up the 11th fewest, so they have that stretch from week 13 to 17. They have all teams in the top 11 against the running back position. So, this is an offense, and especially Pacheco is a player that can find ways to score here, but I don't quite know exactly how this is going to shake out. Diego, 3 to start. We got Adams, Higgins, Shakir, Jennings, and Mooney. So Mooney's off the injury report. He's going to play. I guess that is good news for Darnell Mooney owners. A little bit of a tough matchup here. And I have seen some people talk about how there's a realistic possibility that Pat Surtain is lined up on Mooney more in this game than Drake London. I don't know if that is going to be true, but it might be. I would start Higgins, Shakir, and Jennings. Would be like, if it was my lineup, those would be the players I would start. I would say Shakir provides you with a safe floor. It is a tough matchup for him, but the game script should be good. He should be necessary in this matchup. You got Keon Coleman out, and then Amari Cooper is questionable. I will say, if Cooper doesn't play, then my value for Shakir lowers a little bit. I like Shakir more with Coop on the field. So, you could switch Shakir and Mooney here depending on situation, but I would definitely roll Jennings. And I'm going to start Higgins. If Higgins is healthy and I own him, I'm going to start him. Too much upside. It is a little bit of a tough matchup, but the Chargers have also had plenty of games where they've given up touchdowns to wide receivers. They're just kind of one of these defenses that, it's hard to run against them. It's hard to throw against them. The game script, I think, to a degree, helps their overall rankings, but they're still a very good defense. Nothing to sneeze at here. So, yeah, I would have Shakir, Jennings, and Higgins in, but you don't. If you dislike one of those, you could swap Mooney in here for sure. J Dubs, what's up, bro? How are you? B Tom or CD Lamb? I would say, generally speaking, I want to start CD Lamb here, but I don't quite know that I want to risk it till Monday Night Football and then get to Monday night and then you're racing to pick up Jalen Tolbert. Although, like I said earlier, Mike McCarthy's saying is no big deal here in terms of the back injury to CD Lamb. So I just, it's not an awful matchup for Brian Thomas Jr. Where do the Lions come in now against wide receivers? Wow. Pretty bad. Second worst in the league, giving up the second most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I thought maybe they had improved, but they haven't. But, I mean, for perspective, last week, obviously the Lions played the Vikings, and they're still giving up the 30th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, and we only got 3.2 fantasy points for B Tom last week. So this is kind of a pick your poison situation. Mac and Cheese Jones was 14 of 22 for 2 interceptions, 111 passing yards last week. So, and he had a lost fumble. Sometimes you see this with backup quarterbacks for their second start, they drastically improve. It could be about the same. So this could go either way. I don't want to get to Monday Night Football and then be forced to play Jalen Tolbert if he's even available. So I guess I go Brian Thomas. I guess. Kyle, Williams or Deontay? Well, I'm not starting Deontay. I can tell you that much. I would start Mike Williams. So Mike Williams was a player that I meant to talk about in 2 videos this week, and I forgot. Just straight up forgot. I meant to talk about him in Sneaky Starts and Streams, and I meant to talk about him in the last minute waiver video, and I forgot. But good matchup here. He's going up against the Ravens, giving up the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And I know he only had one target and one catch this past week, and it was a big touchdown catch. I think he could be part of the game plan this week, but I think Calvin Austin could, or Van Jefferson. It's hard to say. Although I think Mike Williams, you could argue, is taking over Van Jefferson's role there. But I do like Mike Williams. I would definitely prefer him to Deontay Johnson here. All right. Joseph, what's up? We got Ingram or Ferguson? I'm going to go Evan Ingram here. I'm a little worried about those of you who own Jake the Snake here. It's not a bad matchup for Ferguson, but to be encouraging here, it's a better matchup for. No, it's not. I still have some of these backwards. It's a tough matchup for Evan Ingram. Lions have been quite good against the position. Third fewest. I still go Evan Ingram. I don't want to start Ferguson here. Dame, what we do this week? Made one final trade in my home league. Traded Debo and A-Chain. How did you trade A-Chain? That's your guy. For DK and Bijan. That's a good trade, I think. Feel there's too many mouths to feed in San Fran, and Bijan could finish as RB1. I'm stoked. I would say, generally speaking, I don't think Bijan's going to finish as the RB1. Not with Derrick Henry looming around. But I still think the argument's fair enough, sure. But yeah, I do like this trade. I think you get arguably more consistency out of both DK and Bijan. So I think that's a good swap. I'm all for it. All right. Thoughts on Cup versus Puka Nacua? I mean, could really flip a coin here. You could really see this in either direction, but call me crazy. I kind of prefer Cooper Cup right now. But it's very close. Very close. I mean, really, Puka got, left early in week 9. I feel like this is just my pure speculation, but I feel like the risk for injury feels higher with Puka right now. But I mean, as long as they're healthy, I think almost every single week they're a lock for double-digit fantasy points. So this is about as razor thin of a comparison as you're going to get. Sammy, I have wide receivers: Terry, Neighbor, JJ, Harrison, Jennings, running backs: Rico, Swift, Chase Brown. We got Otten, Hurts. Trade offers: Chase, Benson, and Davis for Terry and Chase Brown. So that would leave you with Chase, Neighbors, JJ, amongst others. You'd lose Chase Brown, but you'd have Rico and Swift. I mean, I would argue that this trade is fine because you get the best wide receiver in fantasy football who you get to pair with JJ. Then you can flex Neighbors. You've still got like Jennings and MH there. But it definitely hurts your running back room, to say the least, because your running backs a little questionable here. I mean, I think it's a good trade for Jamar Chase. Like, I think they're kind of underselling Jamar Chase. In my opinion, Terry and Chase Brown is not enough for Jamar Chase. So that's a plus for you. Terry went into week 11 as a wide receiver 3. For what it's worth, he will drop a few spots here as he finished with 2 fantasy points. Eagles secondary looking much different beginning of the season. The The only thing I worry about is like having Rico and Swift. Like you can potentially get through here. I feel like both of those players' ceilings are so low. But I guess the question that it comes down to is the ceiling that Neighbors, JJ, and Chase offers enough? Like, does it outweigh? Plus, you got a good quarterback. You're fine with Otten at tight end. I really hate to see you lose Chase Brown in this situation. I would, I mean, like, I know you're getting Benson and Ray Davis, but you can't trust those guys, you know? I would try almost to consider renegotiating and adding Jennings or Marvin Harrison Jr., which I think both of those players have plenty of value, and trying to get something more at running back in return. Like, don't trade for Benson, don't trade for Davis. Like, you're going to start Neighbors, JJ, and Chase the rest of the season here, and then just try and get a startable running back in return here if you're going to do this trade. I think you can give up Terry and Chase Brown, but I think especially if you were to add, you know, Jennings or especially Marvin Harrison Jr., you should be able to get a startable running back in return. But I don't know if that kind of like, you know, that just makes it too much, and then they don't want to do it and all that stuff. So, um, I just I think it comes down to this. Do you think the ceiling that you would have with those three wide receivers starting every week, which is a very high ceiling, do you think that will outweigh starting Rico and Swift every week and losing Chase Brown? If you think it does, then I think you can do the trade. But if not, try and negotiate a little bit here. I think if you're gaining Jamar Chase, especially if this is a single flex league, you can potentially uh, definitely part ways with Marvin Harrison Jr. or Jennings in this trade, but don't lose JJ or Neighbors. Neighbors, just a fantastic strength of schedule after the bye week, every single week. So, and great playoff schedule too. So, that's a good one. Andrea, hello. Picked up Knox in our Dynasty League. I'm out Laporta and Kincaid. That league's getting down to the wire, let me tell you. Andrea needs one. Tank Dell, Tillman, or Sutton. I would not start Tank Dell in this situation. I think he's a startable player this week for sure. But I love Tillman's matchup and I love Sutton's matchup. I had both of those guys in the must start video. And I do like Tank Dell against the Cowboys, especially with Nico out on the field. Some people might say, well, but I like Tank Dell more with the defensive pressure applied to Nico. It's going to be times where Tank Dell is going to have nothing on him, really. So I like all these starts. I think I will go Sutton. But you can't really go wrong. Tillman's a great start, and I think Tank Dell is very startable. Would you trade Amon Ra for Monty, MH Jr., or Tyreek and McBride? No. I mean, I think the Monty MH Jr. trade is fair. It really is dependent on your roster. Like, how bad do you need the additional running back here? You got Marvin Harrison Jr. as the wide receiver 13, and his strength of schedule gets much better. I know there's been some tough weeks in recent weeks against good pass defenses like San Francisco and the Chargers and Chicago. And he showed up against Miami and the Jets, who were also good pass defenses. But I know there's been a little bit of inconsistency, but a lot of that is chalked down to the game plan that we've gotten here. And I think that game plan is going to change. I mean, we look after the bye week for Arizona, Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle, New England, Carolina, the LA Rams. It definitely gets much better here. And the Cardinals going to be one of these teams right in the thick of things, you know, in terms of playoff seeding. And they got a chance right now to win that division. So, you know, that's another thing that we look for here towards the end of the season, because we're going to be getting potentially more competitive game scripts, which is a good thing for fantasy. So if you really need the additional running back here, I think you could do that trade. I like it much better than the Tyreek McBride trade. I think, McBride, fine. But I want to get a running back or wide receiver in return for a player like Amon-Ra as opposed to tight end. And then Tyreek just trending downward here. So it's really going to be roster specific here, which for majority of trades, they're usually going to be roster specific. But I would say in essence, I like the MH Jr. and Monty trade more. Matt, Ramondre or Devontae Adams? I would probably go Devontae Adams. I think Ramondre is always startable, but I don't know this week. It's just like with Drake May at quarterback, Ramondre's been a bit unpredictable. You'd like to see. I mean, he still had 20 touches this past week, but 8.7 fantasy points to not find the end zone. Had 74 yards on the ground, but the Rams' run defense, not so bad. They're giving up the 12th fewest fantasy points to running backs. He's just unpredictable. I think in full PPR, I would go Adams in a better matchup. But yeah, neither of these guys really my favorite starts. Eddie, we got Mooney, Stevenson, or Pearsall in half PPR. I mean, I'm probably just going to go to rankings here and go with Mooney since he is playing. If you want to go matchup, then it's Pearsall. But I also kind of worry about Mooney in this matchup against the Broncos. But I mean, he's the wide receiver 7 on the season. Going to be put to the test here over the next couple of weeks. Broncos, Chargers, Minnesota, not so bad. The Raiders, actually a tough matchup. Giants, not so bad. Washington, who knows? Washington, a little bit wishy-washy. Brett, we got Reed, Etienne, or D-Hop. Personally, if it's my lineup, I'm starting Jaden Reed. I mean, all season long, I've been of the belief of just start Jaden Reed. So, yeah, that would be my advice. I mean, he's a top 10 wide receiver 9 on the season, and is coming off a bye week and still ranks in the top 10. So, yeah, there's been some inconsistency, 3 single-digit games on the season. But other than that, you got 10.9 or more fantasy points in every game on the season. So, it is a bad matchup on the road against Chicago. But I would start Jaden Reed. ETN is interesting. I'm kind of interested to see what the Jaguars cook up this week. But if it's my lineup, Brett, I'm going Reed. Let's see. This was an answer. Okay. Oh, I didn't see for Eddie. It was half PPR. Yeah, I'll probably go Stevenson and half PPR. I agree there. Andrea, Najee or Estime? I'm going Najee. Yeah, if you own a player like Najee, there's no reason to go out and start Estime. How do you say his last name? I think I've been butchering it all week in videos, but yeah, I mean, I know it's a bad matchup for Najee, but at least it's a good competitive matchup. I would just go Najee. Matt, we got Drake May, Stafford, or Love. Oh, not really a good situation for any of these guys this week. The Rams giving up the 19th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks for Drake May. The Patriots giving up the 6th fewest. And the Bears giving up the fewest, first against the position. I guess I'd gamble on Drake May. A lot of people, I had Stafford as a sit going into the week. And a lot of people are getting after me on that one. I'm like, it's not a good matchup. And they didn't play so great against Miami, which was also a bad matchup. I mean, this is a tough. I think you either you have to make the decision. Do you trust Stafford here? Do you trust Jordan Love here? Both in tough matchups against top 6 units against quarterbacks. And neither of those units particularly bad against wide receivers either. The Bears giving up the second fewest fantasy points to the position, and then the Patriots 17th, they're right in the middle. The Rams are the worst defense overall here against quarterbacks and wide receivers. So looking at rankings, I think I go Drake May. I'm a little spooked on Jordan Love, though. Start of the week, okay with Jordan Love. Now I'm a little spooked. Would you rather eat ketchup on steak, mac and cheese, or a hot dog? Hot dog. Let's see. I need help. Start 3. Jennings, D-Hop, Ridley, Metcalf. I would bench D-Hop. Jennings, good matchup. Ridley, good matchup. Metcalf, you want to start when healthy. I'm going to bench D-Hop here. Let's see here. The Bills giving up the 9th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. I didn't like D-Hop last week. Everyone was getting after me. I'm like, it's just not a good matchup. He's coming off the big game, but he's probably still okay floor option. But yeah, I would start Jennings, Ridley, Metcalf. It was my lineup. Should I start B-Tom or JSN? I mean, I'll probably take the volume in the matchup in Brian Thomas Jr. Metcalf going to ruin the JSN show, I think. We'll find out, though. Ivan, half PPR flex. Should I start Cooper or Audric Estime? I'm not starting Amari Cooper. Go with Estime. Hunter Henry, Knox, Disley. I'm going Hunter Henry, one of my favorite streaming options at tight end this week. He's had double digits every game that Drake May has started and played fully in, except for this past week. But the Bears, one of the best units against opposing tight ends. So I'm going to go Hunter Henry here, but you guys know how I feel when we're in this type of situation. These type of tight ends, it could go any direction here. Gwen has no choice, has to go Mostert. I don't know why I said Mostert or Madison. Yeah, I mean, Mostert has the matchup, but 0 touches last week. 0 touches. Well, 2 catches, 0 touches on the ground. I just don't know that I can trust that. I just don't know that I can risk it here. A-Chain 12 touches, 5 targets, 5 catches. Madison saw a little bit less volume in his last game, which was, of course, in week 9 as the Raiders were on bye week in week 10. And Zamir White had 6 touches and some goal line work and a tutty. The Dolphins are giving up the 20th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, so still not a bad matchup. They've just improved a bit. I mean, this could really go either way. I'd probably take the perceived volume in Madison. I don't want to trust Mostert. Is this production from Darnell Mooney sustainable as Falcons wide receiver 2? Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're in week 11. It's not like we're in week 3 or 4. I had concern with Mooney early on in the season because his ranking, when he looked at it, it was like he was ranking high, but we only had so many games, and then we had some low floor games in between there too. But he's done enough. I mean, we're 11 weeks in. We've got double digits in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, single digits in 4. So we got 10 weeks down. definitely sustainable. What wide receiver could I get if I trade Gibbs? I mean, you should get a pretty dang good wide receiver if you trade Gibbs. He's the RB5. So do not undersell yourself. But the issue becomes there's really not like there's been so many injuries at wide receiver. It's kind of hard to trade for a wide receiver now because those top tier guys you just have to give up a lot for. Now Gibbs is like a pretty dang good option, but there's been so much more sustainable production at running back than wide receiver this year because of injuries and other things as well. But it's just going to be tough, in my opinion. Like, you probably won't go to rankings here. You're going to want to look at guys like I would try to get a package, if anything, like Cooper Kupp and Mike Evans. Like that'd be a very solid package. A player playing like a wide receiver one than a player coming off of injury who is a wide receiver one who maybe has perceived lower value. You could also package for like Devonta Smith, a player who I think is a good buy low right now. Terry McLaurin, a good buy low, but I don't know if you can trade for him since he's already played this week. But if you're trading Gibbs, like you got to kind of start high. But the problem is like when you look at the top wide receivers, like JJ, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, even throw in name, I mean, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, who's technically the wide receiver 4, Drake London, like the list is kind of short here. So it's just kind of tough. I think Malik Neighbors a great name to try and trade for. Talked about it a lot throughout the week, but Neighbors comes out of the bye week with Tampa Bay, Dallas, the Saints, Baltimore, Atlanta, and the Colts. The best overall strength of schedule for the remainder of the season of any wide receiver that I've seen. So Pickens, another name that I really like right now. So it's just tough trading for wide receivers right now, but don't undersell Gibbs. He's the running back 5, and that's not changing anytime soon, especially when the Lions are playing the Jaguars this week. Motherland edits. You got Wilson, Adams, Lamb. Shakir is the only person left on my bench. Should I trade CeeDee? And what are possible trades I should try? Quite frankly, I wouldn't trade CeeDee. My problem is if you trade CeeDee Lamb, you're just selling him at the worst possible value of the entire season, especially with the back injury popping up now. It's like you're selling CeeDee Lamb for scraps, and I just don't know what you could really get in return if you do trade CeeDee Lamb. And he still has a very good strength of schedule for the remainder of the season. We're just going to have to see, is he really like going to put his body at risk? And what type of quarterback play are we actually going to get? I mean, if you're CeeDee Lamb, there's nothing to play for. There's just, you've got your contract. There's literally nothing to play for. So I just don't know what you could trade him for. Maybe there's a team really stacked at running back who wants to move and get some wide receiver depth before the trade deadline. But the problem, I mean, so many running backs have been so productive this year. It's like the value is just going to be hard to equate here, but it's very difficult to say. I would look to wide receiver needy teams and go from there if you're going to trade him. But I don't think that all is lost for CeeDee Lamb this year. The matchups are there. I think the quarterback play can get to a sustainable place, believe it or not. But the bigger issue becomes, is CeeDee Lamb going to actually end up playing the remainder of the season or consistently through the rest of the season? But hey, Garrett Wilson, Shakir, I mean, these are good options. Adams, at least playable. All right, Big Lou. We got CD, London, Higgins, JSN, Jennings, Dowdle, Ramondre. Need 2 wide receivers and a flex. I'm starting London. I know it's a bad matchup. I'm starting him personally. I'm starting Higgins. If Higgins is healthy, I'm playing him. If you want to avoid the CeeDee Lamb situation, then just go Jennings. I think Jennings is a very strong start this week. I would definitely flex a wide receiver here. I like the wide receivers over the running backs here. I'm going to avoid JSN. I just don't, with DK back, I don't exactly know what we should expect out of him. I know he had that monster game in week 9. I would go London, Higgins, Jennings. Johnny, what's up? Dawson Knox or Andrews? If I got Andrews, I'm sticking with Andrews. Yeah. I mean, there's really, I feel like I've said this for a bit now. There's just no reason to not start Mark Andrews. So keep rolling with them if you own them. Happy if you're a Ramondre or Chubb. I'm going Chubb. First time Chubb has come up tonight. Yeah. If I own Chubb, I feel pretty good this week. It's a great matchup against the Saints. We buy homes. What's up? I'm torn between London or Reed. Yeah, neither have good matchups. I think I lean Drake London. It's very close though. Very close. Knox or Hill. I mean, I think I go Taysom Hill. I don't really personally want to start Dawson Knox. I think it could happen. I get why we're speculating on this, but I just don't really want. I don't want to see what happens. He's got like one catch on the year. I know Kincaid's in front of him. It's not really one catch. He's got one touchdown on the year that he vultured. He's got 10 catches on the year. I mean, I know what Knox has been in previous seasons and everything. I'm a big Dawson Knox stan if you guys go back to the early days of the channel. So I just I don't know if I want to do it. It's not a bad matchup, but I don't know if I want to do it. Let's see. Josh Downs, Elijah Moore, or MVS. Yeah, I think I'm still going Josh Downs. I know Anthony Richardson's playing quarterback here, and I know it's a tough matchup, but is Pittman playing? Is Pittman alive? Yeah, Pittman's good to go. So that makes me feel better about Downs because then I would imagine that Sauce Gardner's on Pittman. Not that Sauce has been good this year for the most part, anyways, but the Jets are still very good against opposing wide receivers. I would go Josh Downs personally. I mean, he's been very sustainable on the season thus far. So if I own Josh Downs, I think he's the best option here. 12 or more fantasy points in every game since week 4, except for week 7 against Miami. He's been great against the pass. So I will go Downs. CJ, what's up, my guy? Full PPR, trade DJ Moore, Swift, and Najee for Chase Brown and Evans. Really going to be dependent on roster here. I think I'd rather have Chase Brown than Swift and Najee, but I'm not giving up. Like, I don't think like Swift is kind of being completely undervalued in my opinion, because he had the one like low ceiling game, but he's been great for 5 straight starts outside of week 10, which was just a bad week for the Bears. But I do think it's important to kind of pay attention to the fact that the Bears are kind of trending downward and they have a really bad strength of schedule. Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle. Seattle's fine, but well, some of these teams do have weaknesses. Those are all good defenses. Like the Bears might lose every game between now and week 16. They'll probably upset somewhere in there, and Najee's been good. So I don't want to just undersell those two players, I suppose. Najee's been fine. He also has a decently difficult schedule. Baltimore tough, Cleveland tough, Cincinnati, not so bad, not so great. Cleveland tough, Philly tough, Baltimore tough, Kansas City tough. I might go get me Chase Brown. And I really like trading for Mike Evans. Right? I'd far rather have Mike Evans than DJ Moore. So yeah, I mean, let's do the trade. But still, as always, you just got to look at what it does to your roster and to your current running back situation because you're losing 2 running backs, gaining just 1. But yeah, I'm okay with it. Oz, Burrow or Allen? I mean, you can't really go wrong here. Kind of tough matchups for both included here. Where's Kansas City rank against quarterbacks? 20th. Chargers got to be up there. 7th. Yeah, I think. I mean, for me, I'm probably always starting Josh Allen if I own him because he has the rushing upside. I mean, I know Burrow's having these games where he's throwing 4 or 5 tutties, but I mean, it could go either way. You got 2 good options, no matter what. I don't think you make a bad start, but I would still start Allen. Andrews or Njoku? I'm going to lean Andrews, but Njoku, fine. Estime, Leggett, Jameson. I would flex Jameson. I'd take the upside. Seattle or Baltimore? I mean, I don't want to start either Seattle or Baltimore. There's got to be somebody else out there. I don't want to start either of those teams. Barbara, start one for the flex. Shakir, BTJ, Reed, or Amari. Got Chasen Pickens. Very nice. Honestly, I would personally start Khalil Shakir. Like I love Khalil Shakir. I do. I think you just get a safe 10, 12 points and you move on. You got tons of upside with Pickens against the Ravens, tons of upside with Jamar Chase. I would just start Shakir. But Brian Thomas Jr., very good matchup. Jaden Reed, bad matchup, but I think still a good start. But honestly, I'd probably just start Shakir. But you could go with really any of those 3. I would not start Amari Cooper. No way. Barbara, start Estime or Spears. I'll go Audric Estime. Is Olave droppable? Unfortunately, not, because he could still come back this year, and you don't want to see what happens if he has production on another team in your league. So he's on IR though, right? I mean, he should be able to chill out on your IR spot for now, right? So if he's on your IR spot, I would not drop him. I just let him be a bench warmer. Start Russ or Love. I'm going Russ. I'm going Russ. I'm a little worried about my guy J-Lo this week. I think Diop could get peppered with short yardage passes. I mean, sure. But Juju's also coming back. I wonder how that's going to impact things. I mean, I think D-Hop's startable, but I don't prefer starting him. Could Ferguson be a good flex option now that Lamb is questionable? I don't want to say that Ferguson is a good flex option, no. And I think that there's a strong chance that Lamb does play anyways, but yeah, I don't want to flex a tight end and then I mean, the Cowboys will be worse offensively if CeeDee Lamb doesn't play. The production will be lowered even more. Dobbs or Pearsall? Pearsall has the matchup, so I'll go Pearsall. But yeah, I do think that I think Dobbs is startable, but I'll go Pearsall. The only thing that worries me with the Niners, like we saw very good production to all 3 wide receivers last week. Then we get another good matchup this week. Is it going to happen again? Now, if Kittle's out, that definitely helps things. C. Mac got plenty of volume last week, too. Heisman, you hoes. Top tight end stream this week out of Knox, Henry, Jonnu, Disley, and Muth. I got to go Freiermuth. The Ravens are bad against opposing tight ends. Give me Freiermuth. I go Freiermuth, Henry, Disley, Knox, Jonnu. That's my order. What's up with the Eagles treating Smitty like the bald-headed stepchild? I mean, it's been 2 games. Everyone is freaking out about Devonta. You know, this happens with almost every wide receiver. You get volatility. He still had 6 targets this past week. AJ Brown had 2 more targets than Devonta Smith this past week. The game plan was just really weird, and then Saquon was balling out. Um, Hurts has been running the ball pretty effectively lately, taking away touchdowns. He's got 1 rushing touchdown in every game since week 7, 2 touchdowns on the ground in 2 of those games, 3 touchdowns on the ground in 1 of those games. I'm just in no way worried about Devonta Smith whatsoever. You look back to last year, he had a stretch between weeks 5 and 7 where he had 9.4 or less fantasy points in 3 straight games. Then the rest of the season, every game except for 1, double-digit fantasy points. This is just what happens with, Devonta Smith will probably finish as a top 20, at worst top 25 wide receiver. There's going to be some volatility sprinkled in. So, just I'm not worried about it. Uh, the Eagles have 3 very strong matchups here: the Rams, the Ravens, and the Panthers in the next 3 weeks. You own Devonta Smith. Don't be worried about it. I also am a Devonta Smith stan, but I rest my case. Worthy JSN or JMO, I'm going JMO. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze for a second there. Take the upside with JMO. Random posts. We got Josh Allen, Brees, A-Chain, Wilson, Amara, Higgins. Start Njoku or Andrews. I'm starting Andrews. If I own Mark Andrews, I don't see any reason right now to not start Mark Andrews. A-Chain, Hunt, Bijan start 2. Well, I'm definitely starting Bijan. The next one I think you could really debate. A-Chain, kind of a down game. Game script didn't benefit him in week 10. The Rams have been good against the run. The Raiders, however, have not been good against the run. Let's see where they're ranking. 27th, but the Bills are 31st. I think Hunt's going to have a really good game. I mean, I still think you get more pass catching upside with A-Chain. I know Hunt, lots of he have 7 catches last week, 10 targets, if I'm remembering correctly. You could really debate the other 2 any direction. I think I'll go Bijan and A-Chain, but it's very close. And I've been calling Hunt a must start all week, so that one is super close. Dobbins, Adams, Jennings in the flex. Jennings. I'm in on Jennings this week. Dobbs or Addison? Huh. Or Myers? I'm going Myers. Yeah, give me Myers out of that bunch. For sure. There's something on my face. Heck. Who is more upside, Shakir or Amari? I mean, neither really have upside. I want Shakir though. I want Shakir out of the 2. What's up, Devin? What do you think about Disley? I got Ingram, but Mac is terrible. Yeah, and it's a bad matchup. Disley has a better matchup. Ingram always has the capacity to have good volume or score in garbage time, of course. But if you want to go Disley, I think it's a better overall offensive situation in a good matchup. Mike or Drake London. We're going Drake London. You still got to go Drake London here. Got to go Drake London here. All right, that one guy with a super chat. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Who would you trade AJ Brown for? Hurts and Barkley keep running. Although they have a good schedule, Hurts doesn't look good throwing. I'm 7-3. I mean, fair enough points, but I don't think that I'm moving on from AJ Brown. I mean, he's had 11.5 fantasy points every game or more in every game since week 6, except for the Jacksonville game. Did he get hurt in that game? It's just 3 super solid matchups coming up here, then 3 really good competitive game scripts weeks 15, 16, and 17. I mean, I get it. Yeah, they're running a lot. They're going to run first and foremost. Um, I mean, AJ Brown has missed 3 games on the season, and he's still a top 15 wide receiver. So, I mean, that's going to answer your question. You got to look for top 15 caliber running backs, and that kind of answers your question. You shouldn't be selling him for anything lower. Um, yeah. I just personally I wouldn't sell AJ Brown. Like, well, he's still going to be very reliable on a weekly basis. So I would have a tough time trading him personally. And like I don't think like you might be able to like get like a Joe Mixon, James Cook. I mean, those are your RB. Mixon's RB8, Cook is RB9. Like I think with the name value that comes along with AJ Brown, some of the matchups coming up, and the fact that he's still been very good on the season, I do think you could push, ranking a little bit here in terms of a trade. Maybe you could get a package like uh, Brian Robinson and James Conner, Brian Robinson, Rashad White, something like that. Although I think Connor's RB10, so I don't know if you quite pull that off, but I just don't think I would trade AJ Brown. If you're 7-3, I think AJ Brown is a strong piece to have on your team moving forward. So just make sure you don't undersell him. But yeah, maybe you could go for a package, get 2 guys who are going to get you a lot of production, but are maybe a little bit lower ranked right now. But if not, you got to shoot for like a top 12 running back. But I'm telling you, I think we're going to see some big games the next couple of weeks here, potentially out of Smith or AJ Brown, both even. All right, but let me know if you need anything else. Thank you for the super chat. Armando, what's going on? Can't decide which wide receiver to start. Reed, Mooney, Ladd, B. Thomas Jr. I would start Jaden Reed. Yeah. B. Tom's got a good matchup. Mooney can always do something. Ladd might be interesting, but I would personally start Jaden Reed. This could certainly go any direction, though. But Reed's your wide receiver 9. I think he's a start every single week. Another thing, I got Adams in my flex. If he doesn't play Myers or Pollard, I go Myers for sure. Pollard, not been bad though. We did see a little bit of Tajay Spears sprinkled in now that he's back last week, but I mean Pollard's probably okay. I don't know. I'm a little worried about the Titans this week against the Vikings. I think the Vikings might put together a good game plan here, and it's a bad matchup against the run. So I would say actually in general, I prefer to start Myers over Adams or Pollard. Craig, what's up? Let's see here. We got a 12-man full PPR team update. Russ, Stroud, Geno, C-Mac, Jacobs, Dowdle, Warren, Bigsby, Brooks, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown, Evans, Downs, Olave, and Bowers. Looks pretty good. So you're starting like Russ, C-Mac, Jacobs, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown, flexing Downs. I guess that's your question. Start Dowdle, Warren, or Downs. In full PPR, I would still start Downs. I'm not going to freak out about him, but you could go Dowdle. I don't want to start Warren. Really, the only thing with Warren was like if Najee didn't play. So yeah, I would just go. I just go Downs, but I still think Dowdle is startable. Silver Rapture, what's up? Disley, Johnny, or Ferguson? I'm gonna go Disley. I like Disley as a stream this week. Estime or Warren? I'm gonna take a gamble on Estime, which I still think starting Audric Estime is somewhat of a gamble this week. I don't know if we're gonna be really able to trust this Denver Broncos backfield and Sean Payton and whatever's going on here. I won't be surprised if Javonte gets like 6, 8, 9 touches this week. I won't be surprised if he gets 1. I won't be surprised if Jaleel McLaughlin gets 6 or 8 touches. But I'm going to hope that it is really, truly Audric Estime moving forward. Once again, I think I'm still saying his name wrong. Stroud or Russell Wilson, I like both here in terms of matchup, but I go Russell Wilson. I agree with you. I think the better game script is Steelers Ravens, and the better matchup is against the Ravens. Let's see. Yeah, that's another point. Jalen Warren's also hurt. Popped up yesterday with a back, or Thursday with a back injury. Big underdog. Mahomes or Drake May? Where do the Bills come in? 10th, fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Rams 19th. I want to start Mahomes still. All right, we don't have a poll up. That's a close one. All right. Who? Yeah. Starting in week 11. Hit the like. If you guys haven't hit the like button already, do it now. All right, so we got Mahomes versus Buffalo. And then we got Drake May versus the LA Rams. They were giving up 19th. Better matchup for May. We'll let the people answer. That's what we'll do. It's close there. Close. I mean, Mahomes, 16 or more fantasy points, 3 straight games. I just feel like the game script for the Bills Chiefs could be really good. Could also be bad, though. Who knows? Yeah, they. I don't believe they're fans of Will Dissly. I don't think Will Dissly was even in the quarterback tight end video that we put together this week. I was a little surprised. But, I mean, everyone has their opinion, right? And they get plenty of things correct. But I like Will Dissly this week. Take a chance on him. Mike Williams over Dowdle or Downs. I will go Downs. I still go Downs. Finally, someone else calls Dowdle Doodle. It's been my name for him forever. But yeah, like Mike Williams is a desperation start. But he is startable. He's playing Baltimore, but one catch. I do think he's taking over what Van Jefferson's role was, and we have seen some productive games over the past couple of weeks out of Van Jefferson, or at least one game. So, this is a good enough matchup that Calvin Austin or Mike Williams can definitely get some involvement here. Got offered A-Chain and Reed for Bijan and Tyreek. I'd still rather have Reed than Hill. I'd rather have Bijan than A-Chain, but it's not as much of a difference that I think I would do the trade. I think I'd just hold. I just won 2 trades, I think. Amon-Ra and Dell for Nico and Pickens. That's a pretty good trade. Dobbins and Bucky for Jacobs. Yeah, I mean, these are good trades. Sorry, I don't know. I keep itching my eye. I don't know what's wrong with me. I mean, losing Amon-Ra, yeah, you're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be tough. He's going to have big games. But Nico and Pickens is a very good return. I mean, I think a lot of people are forgetting that Nico was the wide receiver 1 before he got hurt. And I love Pickens the rest of the season. So I think this is a good trade, but I still think Amon-Ra is going to be very good. I really like Bucky the rest of the year, and I don't think that Dobbins season is all doom and gloom. Um, but I like Jacobs a lot the rest of the season. And like you can start Jacobs every week when healthy, and you know exactly what you're going to get. So these are good trades. Start T or Amari? T for sure. T for sure. I don't want to start Amari Cooper unless I'm in a 16 team format and I'm forced. What's up, Cinnabon? I will check my DMs. Why do I feel like whatever trade offer this is going to be very underwhelming? I will check them though. Believe in Mahomes. Do it. That's kind of where I lie with that one. Goff or Russ? Now Goff does have a good matchup this week. And he's at home in the dome. The Jags giving up the 30th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So I just worry about the potential game script for Goff against the Jags. Like I feel like Monty and Gibbs might just have big games, but I also kind of felt the same way last week, and the Vikings did not show that. So I think I go Russ. But this could go either way. This is very close. Armando, what you got here? Where do you rank DK for rest of the season? He's going to be a very reliable wide receiver that you can trust. I mean, when healthy, you know. I'm still very much so in on DK Metcalf. So, rest of the season, it's a decent schedule. San Francisco, Arizona, the Jets, Arizona, Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago. As I started to say that out loud, it's actually a little worrisome. I mean, San Fran's stiffening up defensively. Arizona's kind of a sleeper defense right now. The Jets have still been good against the pass. Green Bay still good secondary. Minnesota, not a good secondary, but they can game plan really well with that front seven and stop the run and make offensive games a little bit more uncomfortable than Chicago, a good pass defense. So I still think Metcalf is good enough to overcome all of that. But that's a tough schedule for sure. Who to flex this week? What's up, Space Ghost? Spears, Keenan, or Johnston? Definitely Quentin Johnston. Yeah, Quentin Johnston's a good start. I would go Quentin Johnston for sure. What do you think about grabbing Kansas City defense for weeks 12 and 13? I mean, they're fine. These are the two games that, like, if I'm rostering Kansas City, that I'm keeping them for, as they're on the road against the Panthers and they get Las Vegas at home. But I've said it throughout the entire course of the season. I've said it in a ton of the defensive videos. Kansas City is just not a good fantasy defense. They are a great defense, but they're not. That doesn't mean they're a great fantasy defense. They're the defense 23 in fantasy. They only have double digits once this year, and that was against Cincinnati in week 2, where they had a defensive touchdown and 2 forced fumbles in that game. They only have 5 interceptions. They only have 3 fumble recoveries, 6 forced fumbles, and only 1 defensive touchdown on the season. So, I mean, they don't allow a lot of points, but they don't get a massive amount of turnovers. So, I think these are 2 very good weeks to start the Chiefs. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that they have a lot of upside. The last time they played the Raiders, they only had 8 fantasy points, albeit they were on the road. Maybe it's better at home, but I think they're fine to grab, but I just wouldn't have like crazy high expectations. I think the 2 teams to really take a strong look at right now, and they're kind of sleeper defenses, are Tampa Bay and Arizona. And there's some risk here, although Arizona's definitely stiffened up as of late. Arizona, they get Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle, New England, Carolina, LA Rams. So Gino's been throwing plenty of picks lately. Sam Darnold's been throwing plenty of picks lately. I do kind of worry about those games, but there is turnover upside. Then New England, you get Drake May. Carolina, you get Bryce Young, although those two quarterbacks have been playing okay as of late. And then they get the Rams in week 17, and Stafford's had some turnover issues as of late. The last time the Cardinals played the Rams, they had 12 fantasy points. But the Cardinals, 2 double-digit performances 2 weeks in a row, strong strength of schedule the rest of the season. We talked about that in Thursday night's video. And we also talked about Tampa Bay, who has a really strong strength of schedule the rest of the season. Not a great fantasy defense, only double digits twice on the season against the Saints and, believe it or not, the Eagles. But they get Daniel Jones or Drew Lock, Bryce Young, Gardner Minshew, Herbert. Tough matchup against the Chargers on the road. We'll take that one off. Cooper Rush, Trey Lance, and then Bryce Young. I mean, it's a really strong strength of schedule that they could have some nice opportunity in. But I do think that Kansas City's startable in weeks 12 and 13 as well. But upside could be disappointing. I traded Gibbs, Reed, and Devontae for Nico and A-Chain. Hear me out. I'm loaded. If you're loaded, then okay. How accurate are the ESPN projected points? Projected points mean nothing. You should just I wish there was a way to turn off projections, because if you could turn off projections, I would encourage everybody to turn off projections. I think you could set much more accurate lineups if you just completely ignore projections, which is what you should be doing anyways. I know it's tough to do so, but once you get into the mindset of just projections mean nothing, then you know you will be more comfortable each and every week. Think of it this way. There were like hundreds of teams out there that were projected to lose last week after playing teams that had, I saw teams that had Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, and Joe Burrow, or Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson, those types of combinations, Mark Andrews. And it looked like, oh, my week's over. And then those teams lost, the teams that didn't have Bengals Ravens players came back and won. So projections are just very, very loose, and I don't play on ESPN, so it'd be tough for me to answer that question as well. But don't let projections take things over here. All right, that one guy. Thank you for the super chat. How do you feel about Walker and Monty? I like both rest of the season. I know Walker's fallen back a bit. He's now the RB19 on the season. But I think the Seahawks will be in this really weird place the rest of the season where they're going to be like right outside of the playoff picture, maybe get in, get out, start to fall off, whatever. Interesting rest of the season here. San Francisco, Arizona, the Jets, Arizona, Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago. It's not the greatest strength of schedule, but Walker is one of these players that's always going to be involved. If he's not scoring, he's involved in the passing game. It's kind of difficult for Walker to walk out of a game without double-digit fantasy points. So I'm still very much in on Walker, and I think Monty is fantastic. Said it all season long, said it all off season long, and he's your RB11. He's another player just really difficult when healthy for Monty to walk out of a game without double-digit fantasy points. So he gets Jacksonville, Indy, Chicago, Green Bay, Buffalo, Chicago, San Francisco. It's a slightly better schedule, especially the next 2 weeks for Monty. Buffalo's a good matchup in week 15. Chicago's okay. He gets Chicago twice. But the thing is, the Lions are going to be right. The Lions are going to be fighting for that number 1 seed, the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. So they're going to be trying to win every single game here to finish out. So yeah, both are very good right now to have. Thank you for the super chat. Disley or Worthy? What's up, Joe? I think I'd just go Disley. Juju's back. I don't know if that helps or makes it worse for Worthy. I just don't think I can trust Xavier Worthy. And I've been pretty lenient with Xavier Worthy, but my patience is gone. By the way, I talked about Juju Smith-Schuster in today's video. I think Juju's a good pickup. See how involved he gets, but I think Juju's a good stash. Hit the like. Thank you, Just Bob. Best RB is Gibbs, but I have JK and Pollard. Having a tough time trading them. Think I'm stuck with them. How bad will they be rest of regular season? I think they'll be fine. Yeah, I mean, I think they have good enough schedules that they'll probably be close to 10, 12 fantasy points on average for rest of the season. I'm not really panicking about J.K. Dobbins. I know some people are, and I know I started the week talking about being worried about the situation with J.K. Dobbins, but you go back to the first couple weeks on the season, and we actually saw quite a bit of work to Gus Bus in those games when Dobbins had really high ceilings the first 2 weeks of the season. So week 1, Gus Edwards had 11 touches. Week 2, he had 18 touches. Dobbins had 22 points and 20 fantasy points in both those games. So I'm not insanely worried about the fact that Dobbins had 15 last week and Gus had 10. You know? And it also was a pretty good matchup against the Titans. So these are still viable options rest of season. Maybe not the craziest upside, but they're startable. Thank you, J-Dubs. We are doing our best out here. How to go back because I missed my question, but I agree with the Smitty take. You mentioned being a Smitty fan before. I am a Smitty fan. I am the Smitty fan. What year was it? So this would have been the second season of the channel. Going into 2022 was the season that I was very high on Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith. And that's when Hurts was the quarterback 3, Smith was the wide receiver 9. And that's the year that A.J. Brown joined. He was the wide receiver 6. That was the year they went to the Super Bowl, right? Yeah. But I liked both of them the year before, and they were both pretty good the year before that as well. I just remember making the calls on Hurts because there was a lot of people down on Hurts before that season. That felt good. It's a long time ago, though. We are now in 2024, so none of that matters. All right, so here's your team after the trade for Space Ghost. Hurts, C-Mac, A-Chain, Jones, Najee, Mason, Wilson, Nico, Amari, Jennings, McBride. Quite frankly, I think whether you do the trade or you don't do the trade, that this is probably a fine team. It looks pretty good either way. All right, let's see. Is Edwards worth going after? I mean, he's a handcuff in my mind. So if you were like really desperate for points this week, he might get you some points. I mean, we also saw Hassan Haskins get a goal line touch. I mean, he's a handcuff in my mind. Flex Chase Brown, Jaden Reed, or D Hop. I'm gonna go with Chase Brown. I do like Jaden Reed. I think D Hop's okay, but I would go Chase Brown. Glitch mod. I have JJ Judy and MVS starting with Downs on the bench with Moore as well. Should I change anything? I'd play Downs. Yeah, I'd play Downs. I still think MVS is more of like you don't have anything better. I mean, Downs has still been good. Um, he only has what 2 single-digit performances on the season. I don't see any reason to bench Downs. It is a tough matchup, but Pittman's going to be out there. Um, I I would start Downs probably over MVS. I'd probably roll Judy out there against the Saints. So yeah, I go Downs. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely look at this and say, you Richardson starting. It's a tough matchup against the Jets. If you want to make that call, that's probably okay. But I mean, Downs has still been productive when Anthony Richardson was a starting quarterback. So um he did have the one bad game in week 7, but week 8, actually Downs tied for his best game of the season was week 8 when Richardson was quarterback. So 22.2 fantasy points in that game. His other game that's tied for where he also had 22.2 fantasy points was week 4, and Richardson was quarterback in that game as well. Well, I guess I should take that back. He was only quarterback for part of that game. He got hurt. That's right. But I had looked it up earlier in the season. If you take Josh Downs' numbers when Richardson's quarterback versus when Flacco's quarterback, it's really not that different. So, and I think Pittman will draw most of Sauce Gardner, but Sauce hasn't been that good this year. Geno, May, or Anthony matchup lies with May. I think Geno is startable though. Geno, I think, could either have like 12 points or 19 or 22 or 8. Like that's the fun with Geno, but Geno is QB 10 on the season. San Francisco or Denver. Yeah, I think I go San Francisco. I mean, they haven't been very good. They have 3 double-digit fantasy performances. They have 8 or less fantasy points in their last 4 starts. We're just talking about Geno. Geno has been throwing some interceptions, so there's turnover upside, but their secondary hasn't played that great. Denver's kind of fallen off here. They get Atlanta, but they have 6 or less fantasy points in 3 straight games, including a -2 performance in week 9. They're on a roll there for a bit. I think I'll go San Francisco, but this could go either way. Nice. Well, my first championship the year that Smitty went off. Very nice. All right, let's see. Mark Andrews or Tucker Kraft. I'll go Mark Andrews. Tough matchup for Kraft. He's definitely touchdown dependent, I would argue. Um, I just I've got a lot of questions tonight and on the week. When it comes to Mark Andrews, and I just don't see any reason to not start Mark Andrews. Been super solid. So yeah, I just roll with Mark Andrews. Warren, Tillman, or Shakir. I would go Tillman. Good matchup. Nice upside. So give me Tillman. Let's see. Down or Waddle? I'm going Downs. I can't do it with Waddle. I said it all last week, and he did get a little action early. I was like, oh, okay, this might be the week. No, 8.6 fantasy points, 6 targets, 3 catches. I mean, there's just no reason to start Waddle, and Vegas hasn't even been that bad against wide receivers. So I'll go Downs. What are your thoughts on Knicks versus Goff and Knox versus Disley, not Disney? Yeah, that's a good question. I think the game script will be better for Bo Nix. So Goff has the matchup, but I just can see the Jags running the football a lot. The game script not benefiting Goff. I mean, it is a great match. The Jags giving up the 30th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, but the trap was there last week with Darnold, right? I think I go Knicks for a better game script and still a good matchup against the Falcons. Um, I'll go Disley personally has been my answer throughout the night. I like him against the Bengals. Talked about him in, um, our sneaky starts and streams video earlier in the week. Or no, I talked about him in today's video, last minute waiver ads, as a streaming option though. But could definitely go either way. I mean, that's the thing with tight ends of this caliber, right? Is like whoever ends up getting more volume and or whoever scores a touchdown is probably going to be the guy. It's very tough to call, but I'll take Disley. He's had some good volume. I mean, we've talked about Disley for a couple weeks now, so it's definitely close between Knicks and Goff, though. Marty, how do you feel about Juju coming back? Yeah, so I think Juju's a great ad right now. He's still very lowly rostered, sitting at 13% rostered still, which when I made today's video last night, that's what he was at. So we talked about him in today's video. Um, I think D Hop's probably taken over that role theoretically, but like this is a team that's been hurting for pass catchers and offensive playmakers all season long. Like, I think that they will get Juju involved. So I don't know if he's gonna have 20 fantasy points or whatever he had the last time he played. Um, but I think he's worth picking up. I don't know if I want to start him right away, but he's definitely a player that can be rostered, and I think he's a good pickup. I don't think it's going to hurt D Hop massively. I think if anything, it might hurt Worthy, but I think also like we get a healthy Juju, D Hop, and Worthy. That's going to open up things more a little bit, especially with Travis Kelce being productive and the run game being good. Thank you, Armin. I appreciate that. Yeah, unfortunately, I just haven't been able to stream as often this year. We've been getting out a ton of content on the channel, but I just haven't been able to stream as often this year. So lately, it's been Tuesdays and Saturdays, which are good times in the week to stream fantasy wise. But I'm glad you got to catch a live stream as well. Tua or Sam? Oh goodness. Yeah, I don't feel great about either of these players this week. Tua's got the matchup against the Raiders, giving up the 24th most fantasy points, and then Darnold gets the Titans giving up the 17th most. So, I mean, I guess I'll take the matchup and go Tua. I think I had both as sits in the start sit video. I think I go Tua for the matchup, but it's a tough one. Just replaced envious with Downs. I'm trusting you here. Praying to the fantasy gods. If I lose, I'm in the military. I will find you. Please do. We'll bring you on live. It'll be legendary. Yeah, I mean it's just tough. Like I think MVS does have a good matchup against the Browns. I talked about him in today's video. I was surprised because he didn't end up like he moved up in roster percentage for sure. He's up at 36%, which was much lower last week, right? And he does have a good matchup this week against the Browns at the end of the day. So like I won't be surprised if he has a decent game. Cleveland has given up the 28th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So I won't be surprised if MVS has a good game. And if that's who you think you should start, then I would encourage you to trust your gut. But if it was my lineup, I would just go with Downs. He's been more productive on the season. The more worrisome thing with MVS is that he only had 3 targets last week. He just caught every ball and 2 of them turned to touchdowns, So I just worry a bit about the overall volume, but at the end of the day, with MVS, there's no one else there really. So and they're going to rely on Kamara and Hill first and foremost. But yeah, I won't be surprised if MVS has a good game. So. But yeah, let's go downs and see if you need to track me down or not. Could Juju be used similar to D Hop? Yeah, certainly. But they don't really like they haven't had any real true rhythm at wide receiver. So I think they're going to try and find that rhythm. Like they had it against the Bucks, but they want to get the ball spread around here. So flex Chase Brown or Jacobs. I think I will go Chase Brown because Jacobs been a little bit banged up. And he gets the Bears giving up the 16th fewest, 16th most, however you want to look at it. They're kind of right there in the middle. It's not a good or bad matchup. Chase Brown does have a tough matchup against the Chargers, but I don't know. He had a tough matchup last week. It didn't seem to matter. So very, very close. Could see Jacobs also kind of closing out that game. Very close. I think I'd stick with Chase Brown, but Jacobs might be the more stable option. Must win this week, says your boy. I have Hawkinson. Should I trade McBride for Tank Dell and Ingram? Probably starting Dowdle or Adunze in the flex and Adams on bye next week. I don't really want to trade McBride, but I think Tank Dell is a viable option. It's just going to be like you're going to feel so bad if Tank Dell has a bad game. He did this trade. He traded away the best tight end in this scenario, and then Tank Dell has a bad game. It's probably a fair trade in essence here, but I think I keep McBride. I mean, I'd rather. I know. I think I'd just keep McBride, and I would personally flex Dowdle. Marty, pick 2 for week 12. Dobbs, Pearsall, Quentin Johnston. I'd go Pearsall and Quentin Johnston based on matchup. Herbert or Sam Darnold? I'd definitely start Herbert. Good matchup, primetime game, should be competitive. Give me Herbert. Any good parlays? My only parlay this week is Monty, Pickens, C-Mac, Joe Mixon, anytime touchdown score. Those are my 4. Armin Disley's rest of the season is strong too. That's good to know. I still feel so proud. I had to spot play Will Disley in a dynasty league. What week was that? Week 7 against Arizona. He had 16 fantasy points. It's like the best move I've ever made in my life. Let's see here. Need a tight end and a flex. Knox, Taysom, Muth, Estime, and Booty. So there was an interview with Kayshon Booty where he got asked how to pronounce his last name. And he said he has no idea why people have been calling him Kayshon Boutte or where that came from because it is actually literally pronounced Booty. So that made me feel good because I would call him Kayshon Booty last year in like dynasty streams and stuff just to be funny, and apparently it's not even funny. It's how you say his name. Anyways, I would start Pat Fryermuth. Great matchup. My favorite streaming option at tight end this week. And I'll go Audric Estime. I'm not taking a chance on Booty. Would you trade Monty for MH Jr.? Really depends on the situation, the roster, where we got the running back 11 and then the wide receiver 14 or 15 off the top of my head. It's a fair trade, but I do think that the passing attack for the Cardinals is going to heat up here. over the next couple weeks, but it really depends on the roster. All right, let me see. Dub Nation, we need 2. We got Quinn Johnson, Josh Downs, Ricky Pearsall, Steverson, and Chubb. I would start Quinn Johnson and Josh Downs. I do like Chubb this week. I think Pearsall's okay. I think Stevenson is startable, but if it was my lineup, I'd have Johnson and Downs in. Andrea, thank you for hanging out. Have a good night. John, what's going on? Good to see you. Should I trade Bijan for Cooper Kupp and Malik Neighbors? I mean, this is a fair return for Bijan if we're looking at a wide receiver package for a running back. But I don't quite know that I want to trade Bijan for anything. It's once again like roster is going to be important here. Situations, depth, all that stuff's going to be important, but I don't quite know that I'm trading Bijan. Nelson's got Lamar, Kamara, Connor, St. Brown, Nico, Hawkinson, Puka, Chase Brown, Jennings, Hopkins, Estime, Rico, Taysom, Kincaid. Was able to get lucky in trades and waiver. I should stop making moves. I mean, I don't know if these are the moves you've been making. I don't know. Maybe you should keep making moves, but no, this team's very good. Trade deadline. When is your guys' trade deadline? Is it this week or next? For a lot of people, it's this week. You can't make trades once Sunday games start. So, yeah, I don't see any reason that you need to make any trades here. I mean, Chase Brown, Jennings, Hopkins on your bench. Good squad here, man. Non-PPR, Downs, Myers, JS said. It's between Myers and Downs. Like, we're looking for touchdown upside, and they both have tough matchups. Like, PPR, I feel fine here going with either guy. I'm going to argue Downs, but it's close between Downs and Myers. How do you feel about Taysom as tight end? He did have the big touchdown call back. I think Taysom's fine. He's fine. You're going to roll with the punches. You're going to get 8-ish, 6-ish points, or you're going to get like 14, 20-ish points. I mean, it's the Taysom Hill experience. It's really difficult to, look at Taysom Hill. Like, for example, the Browns are 6th or 5th against opposing tight ends, but you can't really view him as a true tight end. Like, it's kind of hard to look at matchup and make a call on Taysom Hill because of the way he gets utilized. But yeah, he's going to be needed in this matchup for sure. So I think he's fine. Flex 1, Dowdle or Estime. I'm still going Dowdle. I know you said Dowdle, but I played against Barclays. So who'd you start? Dowdle, Adunze, or Pop? I start Dowdle. I do think Pop is interesting. I'm not trusting Rome Adunze. Could be one of those weeks, but it's so risky. I do think Pop Douglas is in a good matchup. But I think, like I talked about Pop in the sneaky starts, like 10 fantasy points is very doable for Pop. But also, like, I don't know if Dowdle's too crazy different there. I think the safest play is Dowdle, but Pop is interesting too. I'll say it this way. If you want upside, Pop probably has more upside, but I might just take the floor with Dowdle. Compare Herbert and Rust rest of the season. That's interesting. The thing that is good here is game script should be good, as both these teams are going to be fighting into the playoffs. But Herbert gets Cincinnati, Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Denver, New England. The good thing here, like Baltimore, good run defense, Atlanta, good run defense, Kansas City, good run defense, Denver, good run defense, New England, decent run defense, Cincy, decent run defense, Tampa Bay, not as good. Right? Or just where does Tampa Bay not good, 26 against the position. So Denver's moved back to a little bit, 19th against the position. New England also sucks. My bad. 25th. So take that out of the equation. But Cincinnati, Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, the next 4 weeks, these are 4 tough run defenses for the Chargers, which means I do think that they will be throwing the football more. Be interesting to see in the actual fantasy playoffs, though. Then dangerous. We've talked a lot about this stretch for the Steelers before it became so trendy, but Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland, great matchups. Baltimore in week 16 again, a great matchup. Philly, Kansas City, tough. But I would say I like both a lot right now. I think if you're rostering both, like they're probably good. Both are going to be startable as long as they're healthy the rest of the season. I'll give a slight nod to Russell Wilson, but it's very close. Right now, though, I think I'd be starting Herbert. Would you drop Darnold for AR? No. I mean, you're probably starting Herbert anyways over Darnold, right? I don't know that I would personally, but I think if you do, it's fine. It's fine. Is Jason a better play than Tillman or Ladd? I'm starting Tillman over both here, especially in half PPR. You're looking for that upside. Take the matchup. Start Tillman. You need that touchdown upside. Joe, Disley or Johnny Smith? I would start Disley personally. Should I bench CeeDee Lamb? I think Lamb is still startable, Ralph, but he does have a tough, or not tough match. He might not play. That's the issue here. Mike McCarthy says his back injury is not so serious. I don't know exactly what to do with CeeDee Lamb. He is still startable if he plays, but it's Monday Night Football. You don't want to get to Monday night and then he doesn't play. Then you got to drop someone and pick up Jalen Tolbert at last minute. All right. Non PPR Downs, Ladd, DJ Moore, Pearsall. I'll take a chance on Josh Downs. Kevin, what's good, bro? Russ or Goff? We've got this one a couple times tonight. I'll go Russ, but it's very close. I just worry about the game script for Goff. Lions could end up just having 20 on the Jags in the first quarter, and Monty and Gibbs do nothing. I mean, do everything. It is a good matchup for Goff, and he is indoors. J-Mo, Tillman, Waddle. I will go Tillman, but I do like J-Mo too. I'm out on Waddle. I'm so out on Waddle. I've been out on Waddle. I'm not going back. I would start Tillman though. Nelson needs some reassurance. What we got? I got good depth since drafts. I've been trading pieces. Oh, this is going back to that team. Also, we're stacking up on hot waiver picks. Yeah, you've done a great job managing that team. So I would stick to it, man. Like I said, though, I don't know. Maybe make some more moves last minute, but that's a good team. You're good, bro. Chris, trade Lamar and Dobbins. No, don't trade Lamar. I think Lamar has the most fantasy points of any player on the season. Obviously, I mean, he's a quarterback, but yeah, he's number one overall, all positions. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like Mixon as much as anyone, but I'm not trading Lamar. Just Bob, thank you so much for hanging out and helping answer questions in the chat. Hope you have a great weekend and good luck to you this weekend as well. Thank you for hanging out. Logman, should I start Sutton, Tillman, or Hill? I mean, all these guys have an argument for sure. I really like Sutton this week. I think Tillman's a very good play. Hill, probably safe for 10-ish points, and maybe we finally see a big Hill game. The Raiders have not been bad against opposing wide receivers. Believe it or not. They come in giving up the 5th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. I think personally I would start Sutton, but I think Tillman's a very good start too. John, my trade deadline is this week. I got Love, Bijan, Kyron, Tracy, Najee, Lundo, Pearsall, Douglas, Deontay, Otten, and Njoku. I don't know what trades you could realistically make. You got a little bit of running back depth. I mean, I will just say it. I don't really know if Deontay Johnson needs to be rostered, but in this type of position, I guess you might as well hold on, see what happens. I mean, this is a team where you're starting Jordan Love, Kate Otten, Oren Joku, Bijan Kyron, Drake London, whoever next at the wide receiver 2, then you're flexing Tracy or Najee, or if it's a double flex, you're flexing 2 running backs. Like running backs are making up the bulk of your team. That's okay. But yeah, I mean, like you could take a running back here, throw on a wide receiver, and see if you can get an upgrade at wide receiver. But don't trade Bijan and don't trade Kyron and Tyrone, Tracy, and Najee have been very good too. But you could take Tyrone or Najee and pair on Pearsall or Pop and see if you can get an upgrade at wide receiver. But that's about all you can really do here. Knicks or Herbert? I'll go Herbert, but I do really like Knicks this week. But Herbert does have the better matchup, and I think we get good game scripts for both these games. So I do like Knicks. We've talked a lot about both guys throughout this week, but I will lean Herbert. Flowers, Reed, or Jennings? I'll go Zay Flowers, but it's close. I mean, any of these guys could outscore one another. But this is a good matchup for Zay Flowers. I think he'll bounce back this week, but this could go any direction here. Jennings has the best matchup. Matchup would go Jennings, Flowers, Reed. Ranking would go Reed, Flowers, Jennings. I'll go Flowers though, but definitely close, Kevin. Very close. This one could go any direction. JT, Jacobs, Jones, Reed, Jennings, Flowers need 2 running backs, 2 at and 1 flex. Wonder if that was 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. So let's start JT, Jacobs. I'd probably go Reed, Flowers, Jennings. I'd bench Aaron Jones. But quite frankly, you could put Aaron Jones in over whoever's in the flex or one of the running backs. But I mean, the only reason I'm kind of down on Jones is because he's coming off a game where he got a little bit banged up. But he's off the injury report, and Tennessee hasn't been the best, but not the worst run defense, coming in 15th against the position. So I think I would bench Jones in this situation, but certainly close. And I'd start Hunter Henry. It's a good matchup. He's been very good outside of last week with Drake May at quarterback. So I would personally start Hunter Henry. We've talked about him as a strong streaming option on the week. So, yeah, I'll go with Henry. All right, guys, we made it to the bottom of the chat. So make sure you guys hit the like on your way out as we start to wrap up here. If you guys need anything last minute, be sure to get it in over the next couple minutes here, and we'll wrap up this stream. We got everything you guys could possibly need on the channel. Last minute waiver additions, sneaky starts and streams, league winning trades / moves, players that are must starts, top 25 kickers rankings, quarterbacks and tight ends, running backs and running backs, wide receivers, start sits, every single matchup, every single player, must start defenses and streams, and an early waiver wire video on the week. So we'll have a video dropping in the morning as well. So if you guys need anything, make sure you check out the content. You can drop a comment. I'll make sure all comments are cleared before tomorrow's games. I know I'm behind, but not as behind as last week. So I'll get all the comments cleared. All right, Marty's got Herbert, Gibbs, JK, Pollard, T, Mooney, Taysom, Bates, Rams. Going up against Purdy, CMC, Mixon, Tillman, Shakir, Moore, Kittle. Dicker the kicker in Miami's defense. You definitely have a chance here for sure. CMC and Mixon's scary. I'm not going to lie to you. Tillman, Shakir, good. DJ Moore, Kittle might not play. That could help you a lot here. Yeah, you're not as far fetched as you think. You definitely got a shot here. I like the Rams defense this week. I like Bates a lot. You got a good shot here. Don't stress too much. John, appreciate you. Don't stress out too much, Marty. I promise I will check my sleeper DMs. Cinnabone. Logman, should I start Chase Brown or Hill? I would personally start Chase Brown. I'd personally start Chase Brown. But we will see what Tyreek Hill does this week. He's definitely startable. But if it was my lineup, I'd just throw Chase Brown in there. It's not a great matchup for Chase Brown either, but I'd rather start him. All right, guys. So make sure you guys check out the video in the morning. If you guys need anything, drop a comment on any of the videos throughout or that have come out throughout the week. And that should just about do it for tonight's stream. We're basically at 2 hours, so that's usually what I do on Saturdays. So thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for all the fantasy questions tonight and allowing me guys to hopefully help you guys. Weird question, but should I trade JJ? No. Do not trade JJ. Appreciate you, Tommy. I'm enjoying the grind this year. Yeah, having Connor on your opponent having Connor on bye week, definitely a good thing. All right, guys, it looks like that does it. So once again, thank you guys for hanging out tonight and for the fantasy questions. And check out tomorrow morning's video. And I will talk to you guys soon. Good luck if I do not talk to you guys before tomorrow's slate of games. Have fun. Week 11. Try and enjoy it. The season's flying by, almost to week 12, guys. So good luck to everybody. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Make sure you guys check out the videos. Drop a comment if you guys need anything. Good luck. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch. And peace.